Okay, we are going to learn how to multiply and factor polynomials. So the first part here says simplify, yada, yada, yada. Multiply the monomial negative x cubed by everything in the parentheses. So basically what you're doing is you're just distributing. We're going to distribute this negative x to the third to all these guys in the parentheses. So when I do negative x to the third times 9x to the fourth, well, we know when we multiply one exponent by another exponent, we add them. So the negative 1 times 9 is negative 9. And then we add our exponents. So 3 and 4 makes that 7. Then we're going to do the same thing to the next term. The negative 1 times the negative 2 right here makes a positive 2. And then, of course, we're going to add the x to the third and this x to the third. And that'll give us x to the sixth. And then last but not least, we're going to distribute this guy right here to the positive 7, and that'll give us negative 7x to the third. We don't have any like terms we can combine. I mean, that's a 7, that's a 6, that's a 3. They're all different, so that's as simplified as it's going to get. All right, let's try the next one. Same thing. We're going to distribute this term to all of his buddies here in the parentheses. So we're going to multiply the 5 times the 3, and then again, you add your exponents. You know how there's a little imaginary 1 next to that n? So 1 plus 3 makes that n to the fourth. And then same here, 5 times this little imaginary negative 1 there gives us that. And then again, we're going to add our n's. 2 and 1 gives us 3. And last but not least, 5 times 8. 1,040, and well, that's the only n, so done. No like terms, so they all stay separated, and that's it. All right, for this next one, it says what is GCF? What does GCF stand for? Greatest common factor. See? F. So if we want to find the greatest common factor for this trinomial right here, let's think about the different factors we have in each of these terms. So if we were to factor out 5x to the third, we'd have 5 times x times x times x, right? What about the next term in our trinomial? This guy. We'd have, oops, sugar, I messed up. I forgot to factor 25. We can factor the 25 into these two pieces, 5 times 5, and then factor out our x's. For 45, we could factor out that 5 times 3 times 3. Really what I just did was I did 5 times 9 in my head, and then I turned my 9 into 3 times 3. And then x. All right, so we're looking for the number first. What is the biggest number that we could divide out of all three terms? It looks like the biggest thing they have in common is 1, 5. Then, what is the biggest number of x's we can pull out of all three terms? There's 3 in this one, there's 2 in this this second one here, and there's only one here. So it looks like the most x's we could pull out of all three would be 1, just 1x. So it looks like our greatest common factor for those three terms would be the 5 and 1x, 5x. Let's see if we can figure out the greatest common factor for this next trinomial. All right, so we're going to take each term and we're going to write it out 3x, x, x, x. All right, now the next guy, negative 9x squared. We could pull out, well, if you think about it, 3 times 3, but one of them's negative, so 3 and then a positive 3, that would give us negative 9. And then let's pull out our two x's, and then our last term, negative 12x. Well, we could say 4 times 3, well, but then the 4, see, this is what I'm thinking in my head. 4 times 3, but one of them's got to be negative, and then this can get even smaller. So that's what I was kind of doing in my head. So we have negative 2, 2, and 3. And then there's only 1x. Okay. So what is the biggest number they all have in common? Looks like this guy right here. So they all have a 3 in common. And the biggest number of x's or variables they have in common would be 1x. All right, so our greatest common factor is 3x. All right, let's try the next one. We have 2x to the 5th is our first term. And we can pull a 2 out and 5 x's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And then we have negative 10x to the 3rd. So we could pull a 2 and a negative 5. And 3 x's, 1, 2, 3. I purposely made him negative and not him because it looks like they're going to have that in common. So if I had made this 2 negative, then they wouldn't be the same. So that's why I put the negative with this guy and not that one. Just kind of telling you how I'm thinking. All right, negative 14x squared is our third term. So we have 2 times 7. And one of them has to be negative. I'm going to make it the 7. Same reasoning I did up here. And we have 2 x's. All right, so the biggest number they all have in common is 2. And the most number of x's that they have in common, looks like they have 2 x's in common. 1 and another 1. So we have 2 x's in common, x squared. So the greatest common factor, therefore, is 2x squared. Okay. Here it says, what is the factored form of blah, 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 blah. It says you just find the greatest common factor and pull it out. Then write the remaining terms. So same idea like we did a second ago. We're going to figure out what our greatest common factor is. So for the 4x to the 5th, we have 2 times 2, and then we'll have 5 x's. 3, 4, 5. For the 24x to the 3rd, oh, my bad. That should be a negative right there. See? Negative. So we're going to go, all right, let's do some thinking. For the factors of 24, I'm going to do it off to the side here. I could say 6 times 4, that can get chopped down to 2 times 2. That can get chopped down to 3 times 2. I don't think I can get any smaller than that. Keeping in mind he was a negative, I'm going to attach the negative to the 3, because if you look over here, since I already have positive 2's, it looks like I'm going to need those. So 2, 2, 2, and then negative 3. And then it's x to the 3rd, so 1, 2, 3. All right, for 8x, you might be able to do that one in your head. 4 times 2, and then break this down a little bit further into 2 times 2. So it's 2, 2, 2, and then there's only 1x. So to look and see what the biggest number is they have in common, looks like I can definitely pull out 1, 2, and actually I can pull out 2 of them. So 2 times 2, that means the biggest number they have in common is 4. And the most number of x's I can pull would just be 1. So 1x. All right. So our greatest common factor is 4x. Now that I know that, I can write what's called the factored form of this trinomial. So you ask yourself, what would I have to multiply 4x by to make it look like this again? Well, if you look down here, we used up all these pieces, and these are the pieces we have left. So it looks like x to the 4th is what's left over. You'll notice if you distribute 4x times this, brings you back to the original term again. So it looks like we did that right. For this term, what do we have left? We have a 2 and a negative 3. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. And we have 2 x's left, x squared. And again, just to double check and make sure we did it right, if you go 4x times this, it does in fact give you this answer, so we did it right. And then for the last term, the 8x, it looks like all we have left is a 2, a positive 2, so we'll say plus 2. 4x times 2, does that bring you to 8x? Yes, it does, so we did it right. So this, right here, this is your answer. Okay. Let's try another one. It says, what is the factored form of blah, 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 blah. So, first, let's get our greatest common factor. So we're going to start with that first term. And we could say 3 times 3 to get to 9. And then we have 6 x's. 4, 5, 6. Okay. For this term, let's see, 5 times 3? Those are both fine. All right, and let's pull out all our 4's, 2, 3, 4. And last but not least, 12x squared. So I'm thinking in my head, I'm going 4 times 3. Nothing I can do with the 3, but I could do 2 times 2 here. So it looks like the factored form would be 2, 2, and 3, and then 2 x's. All right, so let's see what the biggest number is they have in common. It looks like all they have in common is this 3 here. So we know we're going to have a 3. And it looks like the most number of x's we can pull out would be 2, this one, and this one. 2 x's, so x squared. Now, whatever's left goes inside our parentheses. So up top here, we have a 3 and 4 x's, so 3x to the 4th. And in this term, we have a 5 and 2 x's left, so positive 5 x squared. And then down here, we have these 2's. 2 times 2 would make that a positive 4. Now always double check, make sure you did it right. Think to yourself, okay, if I distributed this again, would I get back to my original answer? Like if I did this times this, does it give me 9x to the 6th? Yes, it does. Same thing with the next one. Does it work? Does it work? As long as it gets you back to your original answer, you did it right. So this should be correct. The end.